name is Laura Perry, and I'm going to be taking you through the first half of the presentation today. And then I'm also joined today by Bernadette McCann, and she'll be covering the second half of the presentation. So we'll just go on ahead and get started then. Again, just to kind of very, very briefly recap what Catherine has just said, if everybody keeps their microphones off, we really do invite you to use your chat function throughout. We will do a couple of activities and we'll tell you when we want you to write into the chat function, but also feel free to share your own experiences, share your own knowledge throughout, and to put in some questions too. And then Catherine will get to those questions at the end of the webinar. It's important to mention that myself and Bernadette aren't mental health experts. We're not even experts in play. Children are the real experts in play. But we're here today to share our experience and our knowledge so far. And this is what this webinar is all about. We're in a room filled with professionals and parents, and we all want to learn from each other. So yeah, use that chat function as much as you can, please. And yeah, keep your cameras on. It's lovely to be able to present to faces. We've done this before, presenting to black screens, and it's just not as easy. Yeah, so Catherine did in your email send out a whole list of services specific to mental health. So yeah, these are just to remind you that they are there. And I do apologize, guys, for the people that aren't from Northern Ireland. These are quite specific to Northern Ireland and Belfast, but that you will have very, very similar services across the water as well. Okay, so just a bit of a further introduction to Bernadette and myself. We're both play participation officers from PlayBoard and I, which is based in Belfast. And for anybody who hasn't heard of PlayBoard before, we are the lead organisation for children's play in Northern Ireland, and we have been since 1985. We deliver a range of programmes across a wide range of settings, promoting and advocating for play as a means of developing physical, mental and emotional health. And this includes providing guidance to regional and local governments as well. PlayBoard's vision overall is to create a society where the right to play is realised. But what are we covering today then at today's webinar? So of course, we're going to be looking at mental health and well-being. We're also going to look at stress, how we react to stress and what goes on inside our brains. We'll look at the topic of resilience, and then of course we'll get to the lovely topic of play, and that's where Bernadette is going to step in. And as practitioners, we understand that early intervention is key to mitigating the effects of stress and trauma that will eventually lead to mental health problems. So we hope to provide you today with some insight and ideas into exactly how we can support children within this particular area, and obviously that is going to be through play. Okay, so before we begin then, we want to do a wee bit of an icebreaker, but also inject a wee bit of play into the webinar as well. So I don't want you to give too much thought to this. I just want you to write A or B into the chat function according to your preference. So do you prefer chocolate or do you prefer crisps? Okay, so I'm definitely getting a wee mix here. Lovely. For myself, I definitely love both, but you can't beat a wee bar of chocolate with a cup of tea. Yeah, there's definitely a good wee even mix there. The next one for everybody is cats or dogs. Now, people get very, very passionate about this subject. I am a dog person through and through. What do you guys prefer?
Oh, I think everybody's, mostly everyone's agreeing with you.
Yeah. There's for me a certain lovability about a dog. They get excited to see you when you come in the door, where a cat just kind of sniffs at you. Doesn't really care. There is a few cat lovers in there. There's a few cats, but mostly dogs. Lovely. The next one then is, okay, so I want you to think about yourself as an adult, as a parent, or maybe as a childcare practitioner, and what you prefer. Do you prefer to do arts and craft activities, or are you more of like a physical outdoor type person?
Real mix coming in there.
Oh, I'm seeing a lot of B's. Oh,
someone like myself, I'm a bit of both too.
Yeah, I think it just depends, doesn't it? I usually, whenever I worked in after school club, you would have found me really with the sensory stuff or the arts and craftsy stuff. but equally I did love the free play and the physical side of it as well. Yeah, a lot of people saying both. Perfect. Okay, again, as it always freezes after like the chat function. Again, just thinking as yourself as an adult, do you find yourself to be quite risk averse? You're not really you don't really love it whenever children engage in risky play. It makes you very, very nervous. You try to prevent it. So you would be A, or are you quite you encourage a little bit of risk and you understand its benefits and you would encourage that to happen? So that would be B. Okay, thank you for your honesty, A, but you try to more B. Yeah, that's completely normal, especially as a parent. I think we all want to try to protect our children, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, a wee bit of risk and challenge is very important to their development as well. Okay, this is great, lovely. And finally then, and this is where we're going to get into today's topic, so we are getting a wee bit heavier. Please be as open and honest as you can. Would you rather go to your employer and ask for time off because you have a counselling session or because you have a dentist appointment? So basically, if you had a counselling session appointment, would you lie and would you say, no, actually, it's a dentist appointment? Please be honest. Oh, okay, there's actually quite a few people that would be more than happy to say they're going to a counselling session, which is amazing. But yeah, there is a few B's in there too. Okay, what about this next one then? Would you rather say to your employer that, okay, I had an anxiety attack last night, and that's why I couldn't make it into work this morning, or I broke my ankle or I had to visit the hospital, like a physical ailment like that? Okay, and again, a wee bit of a mix. Yeah, and that's completely fine. Yeah. Okay, no worries. Thank you for your honesty, guys. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So if you actually did answer B for those last two questions, then just like myself, you would have been affected by the stigma that surrounds mental health in some sort of way. And it does affect the majority of us. There is a huge negative stigma attached to the topic of mental health. For some reason, we do find it a lot easier to talk about physical ailments like broken bones or having a head cold and things like that, rather than saying, yeah, I do actually suffer from anxiety, or I do attend a counselling session once a week for whatever reason. But hopefully webinars like this are kind of like the first point of conversation. Hopefully we're going to break that stigma moving forward, and particularly with the next generation of children that we are working with or that we're raising. And this is what we're hoping to do today. Okay, so with that in mind, then let's talk about emotions. And this is where we're going to get into the bulk of today's content, okay? So here are a few facts about emotions, first of all, for you. There is apparently 34,000 different types of emotions. Who knew? 8 of these include our primary emotions of anger, anticipation, joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, and disgust. And I'm sure you would all agree there's actually a lot more emotions than that. The main functions of emotions are to guide us to survive, to thrive, and to avoid danger. And emotions also help us to understand others, and it helps others to understand us as well. And perhaps most importantly, all emotions are completely neutral. There is no such thing as a good emotion or a bad emotion. This is just society's view. So I want you all to take a wee look at this wee visual with a wee poster that I have on the screen here. And it might look familiar to some of you. Sometimes you would find these in schools, maybe in your child's childcare setting, or if you do work in a relevant field within childcare, maybe you have this in your place of work. And generally these posters are used to provide a bit of a visual introduction to just a small handful of all the emotions that we can feel. But I want you to have a wee think about who actually sat and talked to you about emotions, who taught you about emotions, how to use them, what they're for, how to manage them in a healthy way. Usually the answer here is nobody. For some reason, we as adults, we don't really think to talk to children about things like emotions. I suppose we assume that it's second nature, that we're all born with like this natural instinct to control our emotions. But then whenever you really think about it, even as adults, we struggle to manage our emotions at times as well. So hopefully through early intervention and through teaching children about emotions a lot earlier, this is something that we'll all be masters of. Because as babies, we are all born with all of our emotions, but sadly, they don't come with an inbuilt user guide. So this is where we step in. It's our jobs as adults, as parents, as children's practitioners, teachers, to support them and to support children and generally manage their emotions in a safe and healthy way. And this can be done in a number of ways. Okay, so first of all, through validating a child's emotions, saying things like, yeah, that's okay to feel that way. That's completely normal. I feel angry sometimes too. I feel sad sometimes too. That's normalizing that for the child, and that's one of the first steps. Secondly, through role modeling healthy coping skills, maybe actually showing, okay, so I'm feeling really angry right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some mindful breathing, and then you would be modeling that to the child. And again, when they see that you're doing something, they're more likely to copy you. Thirdly, then we have education. So educating them in emotions and why we need them, educating them in the brain development around that. And we're going to look into that a wee bit later. And finally, through something called co-regulation. And this is particularly important for younger children, typically under the age of 8, or children with social emotional immaturities. Quite simply, they just don't have the ability to self-regulate independently yet. Their brains are still under reconstruction. So co-regulation basically requires you as the adult to support the child back to a place of calm by providing a safe environment in which you can validate, role model, and educate together. And that's the beauty of co-regulation. And by scaffolding these skills, you're actually helping that child to build regulation strategies that hopefully they'll continue to use for the remainder of their lives. And let's not forget as well, good mental health is actually a basic human right of the child, as stated by Article 24 of the UNCRC, which applies not only to the right to physical health, but mental health as well. And thankfully, we are beginning to realize that there is no health without mental health. But why is it so important then to help children understand emotions? Well, when children understand their emotions, they achieve this lovely sense of control, which then can better help them to manage those emotions. And with understanding and having the language to communicate how they feel, they're actually able to better identify when something is actually wrong, when they're maybe not feeling quite themselves. And then they're more likely to actually go and speak to a trusted adult and ask them for help. And finally, when children aren't taught about emotions or how to manage them safely, they're actually more likely to develop mental health problems in later life. And then they might even resort to unhealthy coping skills, things like misuse of drugs or alcohol, overeating or undereating, self-harm, or even suicide. And I do have some mental health stats specific to Northern Ireland later in the presentation to show you. And we do fully appreciate that promoting emotional intelligence to children and young people, it can feel quite daunting. You're kind of panicking, you're thinking, what if I say something wrong or I actually do more harm than good? Or admittedly, sometimes we might think, I barely know how to manage my own emotions, never mind actually trying to teach a child. But wee films such as Inside Out, and you can see the wee visual here, they're really great for younger children for planting those first seeds and starting those conversations in an age-appropriate, relatable and fun way. And I'm sure as professionals, you're maybe already using them already. But again, it's just planting that wee seed to let you know this is the way that this is something we do with children, and it works really, really well. And like
sorry, Laura, I'm interrupting you, but I was working with a group of children recently who were telling me, very excited to tell me that there's an Inside Out 2 coming out.
Oh, there you go. Amazing. We'll have
your eyes peeled.
We have that to look forward to then, absolutely. No, it definitely is a really, really great tool. Kids love it. It's very, very relatable and age appropriate for them. And yeah, it really does get those first conversations flowing. And like any kind of intervention, the earlier we start, the better. So have these conversations from literally the moment that a child starts trying to talk, just kind of throwing in all that lovely language, look at sadness, look at joy, what made joy happy, and things like that. And yeah, as we continue to move through this presentation, then hopefully we'll be able to give you some ideas and activities and things like that will help you to promote emotional intelligence even more for a child through the lovely process of play. And what's great about it is every child can play, so it's fully inclusive to everybody. Okay, but before we go any further then, we're here today to talk about children's mental health and well-being, but what exactly does it mean? We're very good at using those types of terminology, but whenever we break it down, what is it? So this is actually the Unicef definition of children's well-being, and obviously this will contribute to a child's overall mental health. This definition takes into consideration the child's life as a whole, recognizing that all childhood experiences will contribute to their overall mental health and well-being. So basically, well-being describes the factors that determine a good life for a child. Factors such as their overall health, their safety in all areas of life, appropriate living conditions, access to education and play opportunities, and the access or opportunity to socialize with other children as well. And finally, it states that all children need to feel loved, valued, and included. So with that being said, a mentally healthy childhood means reaching developmental and emotional milestones, learning healthy coping skills and they have the ability to use them, maintaining a positive quality of life, and that the child is able to function well at home, in school, and within their communities as well. But what is stress as well then? Stress can actually have a massive impact upon our mental health and well-being. And this is because when too much cortisol enters our body through our brain, this basically alters our thoughts, our moods, and our behaviors. Stress is defined as the body's reaction to feeling threatened or under pressure. And typically it's perceived as a wee bit of a negative thing. No one likes feeling stress, but it actually can be really positive too. It might motivate us in our areas of work, in our home life, or in times of exams or tests, or when you're delivering a webinar and the stress kicks in and you need that adrenaline to keep you going. Yeah. So now obviously this webinar is geared towards children, and typically we don't think of children as being stressed. We kind of think, well, what do they have to be stressed about? But stress doesn't discriminate, and sadly it can affect anybody, especially whenever the factors that we've just talked about for well-being, when they're absent and the child's needs aren't being met, that's when stress might occur. But what does a distressed child actually look like? So every child is different, and as you well know, they will show their stress or de-stress in different ways. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these bullet points. Feel free to take a wee photo of the screen if you want to. I'll just break it down a couple for you quickly, okay? So maybe you're going to look for things like severe behavioural changes, maybe unprovoked or uncharacteristic aggression, or feeling overly emotional. Maybe the child keeps crying for no apparent reason. They might also be overly clingy. The child's not wanting to leave your side, or they're not wanting to play with their friends. Or maybe there's toileting regression as well. So maybe a child that is 8, 9, 10 years old and all of a sudden they're soiling themselves. And then we have self-harm as well. And again, this might seem far-fetched for younger children, but self-harm can actually include things like excessive nail biting, pulling their hair out or their eyelashes, refusing to eat, or overeating, turning to food for comfort. Or maybe they're deliberately hurting themselves to get your attention. Mental health or distress can also have a big impact on the physical health of the child and might show itself with the child having like regular stomach aches or headaches, or always just complaining about feeling not well in some sort of way. Now, obviously, stress can happen for a number of reasons. Maybe something like a recent transition in a child's life, a new sibling, moving house, being new to your setting, or even something more severe like a bereavement. But just be mindful of your safeguarding procedures. Keep a wee written record of anything that you do see, any like kind of behavioural changes in a child that do kind of ring alarm bells in your head. Write that down, record it, date it, And yeah, if things do progress, then obviously just follow your safeguarding procedures. That would be really, really important. And listen, I do appreciate that all these kind of behaviors and distress behavior can be very, very challenging, especially within your home or within a setting. But it is important to remember that all behavior is some sort of communication. The child is trying to tell you something is wrong and their needs aren't being met in a particular way. Okay, so I do apologize to our participants that aren't from Northern Ireland. You're from over the water. I'm now going to bring up a couple of stats that are very specific to Northern Ireland, but it might just be of interest to you anyway. So it's important to recognize that mental health problems are actually really common and they can affect anybody, even our children. So here's a further insight into some of our stats for you. 1 in 5 adults and around 45,000 children are reported to have a mental health condition in Northern Ireland at any given time. So this is 25% higher than the rest of the UK. More than 20% of young people are suffering significant mental health problems by the time they reach 18. So that's approximately 6 children out of every class of 30. It's quite scary, really. There are significantly higher levels of depression in Northern Ireland than the rest of the UK, resulting in higher antidepressant prescription rates and higher instances of self-harm. In Northern Ireland, at least 25% of children are classified as overweight or obese, and these, of course, contribute to mental health problems in later life as well. Between the years 2000 and 2018, a total of 4,783 deaths came from suicide. In fact, more people died from suicide in Northern Ireland than were actually killed during the 30 years of conflict here. So it seems that these stats specific to Northern Ireland could actually be due to something called transgenerational trauma. So Catherine briefly talked you through that earlier. You could do a completely different webinar on transgenerational trauma and ACEs and childhood adversities, things like that. If you are interested, there's loads online. But basically, this is a process when trauma travels through different generations to affect individuals that actually didn't experience the trauma directly themselves. And this is, of course, most relevant to the troubles that occurred here. But hopefully, with early intervention and education in emotions, mental health and well-being, and healthy coping skills, things like that, hopefully we can actually prevent these stats from getting any higher in the future. All right, though, so it's all not doom and gloom, no. We'll move on now to the topic of resilience, because resilience and mental health actually go hand in hand. And the level of resilience we have will actually help shape and determine our own mental health. So resilience can be defined as the inner learning and strength that we find to overcome adversities, regardless of how big or how small the issues may be. And quite often we don't even realize our own levels of resilience. But if you take a wee look at the 2 figures here, this wee boy and girl, this actually might, you might actually be able to relate to these and say, oh yeah, well, actually I do have that characteristic. Or I love it whenever you're working in a childcare setting and you see a child that is demonstrating resilience, and maybe for the first time. I think that's really, really lovely to see. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a wee bit of time just to kind of run your eye over those traits there. And it's important to mention as well that even though we do have a wee visual of a boy and a girl, the resilience traits aren't defined by gender or by age or by ability. It's just kind of something that you build over time, as you will see in the next slide. Because the good news is that resilience can be built upon and improved at any time in our lives. Think of resilience to be like a muscle. It can be made stronger and bigger as time goes on when we're surrounded by the right environment, when we're given the right opportunities, and when we're surrounded by supportive people. So you might not really characterize yourself as resilient now, but again, the good news is that can be learned, it can be practiced. Okay, so again, being that we're from PlayBoard, we are going to play a wee bit of a game. We're going to inject a wee bit of playfulness into the webinar. And this is something that we do with children to teach them about resilience, because it isn't really an easy topic to kind of teach them or to introduce them to. But when you actually bring up some famous people that have showed resilience in their life, then they kind of go, oh, yeah, I understand it now. It makes it more relatable. So using your chat function, I want you to guess who each of these people are. So the first one then, this person wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4 years old. And his teacher said he would never amount to much. Who do we think that is? Who do you think? Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
I don't even know who that is.
The Tesla man. He's the guy that made Tesla.
Oh, all right, okay. Probably something I should know. Okay, yeah. Oh.
Lord Sugar. Einstein. Okay. You're fired. It's back on the Apprentice. I love it.
Is there anybody else who's going to put in a wee guess? Okay, yeah. Oh, come on, don't feel me now. There we go. It was Einstein, okay. Well done for anybody who did guess it. Your second one then is, this person was born into working class poverty. She was the daughter of a teenaged low-income mother, and she was pregnant at 14, but sadly her son died shortly after birth. She was then demoted from her job as a news anchor because she was seen as unfit for television. Who do we think that is? Was Robbie Williams for the other one, or them?
Yeah, it was the other one, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Oprah. Angela Rippon. Oprah again. Okay. If there's no more answers coming through, then I will flag up my answer here. There we go. It was actually, in fact, Oprah. Well done. The third one then, this person was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. Who do we think that is? Oh. Okay, Walt Disney. Steven Spielberg, Steve Jobs. Anyone else? J.K. Rowling. Okay, let's see. It was Walt Disney. Well done. Someone did definitely say it there. That for me is the most startling one, because I love Disney, and I, even as a 30-year-old, so whenever I'm thinking, lacked imagination, what? But just shows. So finally then, when trying to publish her book, she was rejected 12 times before a small publishing company decided to publish her book, mainly because the 8-year-old daughter of the chairman liked it. However, she was told they didn't think she would be able to make much money from writing children's books. Who's that? Yeah. Oh, you're well on the ball. Amazing. Yeah. So obviously, when you're doing this with children, you can make it more age appropriate for them. Maybe some famous figures that they would be possibly more able to recognize. Lionel Messi is a famous footballer. He showed resilience in different ways. Lady Gaga, she kept on being rejected before someone eventually signed her on. People like that. And yeah, it's just a really lovely and fun way of describing resilience to children and young people. Okay, so that was a wee bit of fun before we got into some heavy content, okay? And I'm just going to remind you, if you do need a wee brain break, or just to kind of take a wee minute to yourself, that's okay. Feel free to switch off your camera at any time. You also can contact Catherine or Bernadette privately as well, if you do need further support, okay? Okay, so before we can actually educate our children in mental health, we also need to educate ourselves and try to attempt to understand how our brain works in times of stress and trauma. So this circuit here is called the Circuits of Survival, and this is illustrated by Dr. Siobhan O'Neill, who is the current mental health champion of Northern Ireland. So it's important to mention that each of these three responses here, these stress responses, are that we have no control over these. This is decided by our brain for us in milliseconds, okay? So if we take a look at the first stage here. This is called safe and social. So in safe and social, we are feeling calm, we're engaged and connected, we're very grounded and secure, and we're filled with joy, hope, curiosity, and compassion. So this is the stage that we hope to be in the most, okay? And this is the stage where we hope our children are the most as well, okay? So then we have this second stage here, which is called fight or flight. And this stage is activated when we do sense like a stressor or danger or a threat in some sort of way, okay? So when fight or flight mode is activated, we become very, very mobilized and vigilant. We might even become aggressive or avoidant. We'll appear very, very stressed. We might shout at someone that we really care about. We might run away, and we'll just generally look very, very angry. But the important thing to mention here is that an emotionally healthy adult or child will actually have the ability to move up and down between these two stages on a regular basis, maybe 20, 30 times a day, okay? And just as a wee bit of an example, if my Wi-Fi was to drop now and I lost connection to this webinar, I would move instantly from safe and social into fight or flight mode, and I would be so stressed, let me tell you. But hopefully when I regain access to the webinar, hopefully then I can self-regulate, calm myself down, and I'll move back up the circuit into safe and social again, and then I can present to you again, okay? But the problems arise whenever we actually end up in shutdown here, okay? And this is usually as a result of ongoing trauma or our stresses or ACEs and things like that, okay? And when we do go into shutdown, we do usually require some sort of therapeutic support, whether that's counselling or play therapy, things like that. When we're in shutdown, we might appear to be frozen, numb, very disconnected from our friends, from our family, from work, very disassociated. We might even have suicidal thoughts and just generally feel very, very hopeless and low. And as I said, that is usually where some sort of therapeutic support is required. But believe it or not, myself and Bernadette and the rest of our team actually do teach the circus of survival to children and young people, okay? But we do it in a more child-friendly and visual way. And it's done through something called the hand model. And that's been designed by Dr. Dan Siegel. And again, I would encourage you to go and to research this. There's loads of videos on YouTube, he's fab. And it's called the hand model because it uses your hand to represent what goes on inside your brain during times of stress, okay? So we'll link this back to the circus of survival as we go. And I'd really like you to do this with me. Hold up your hand if you can, just so that I know that everybody's kind of with me as I go, okay? So we're going to use our thumb first of all. And our thumb is going to represent the amygdala, which activates the fight or flight mode that we've just talked about in the circuit of survival, okay? But when we're with children, we don't really use words like amygdala because we might lose them. We tend to use the word alarm system because that's essentially what this is. It's an alarm system that triggers an alarm when the child senses danger or a stressor, okay? And next up, we have our prefrontal cortex then, which is going to be our fingers. And again, we're not going to use that type of language. We would use the word happy calm brain, okay? Because when we are in safe and social, that's what we are. We're feeling happy and we're feeling calm. We have the ability to self-regulate, okay? So our alarm system lives tucked in behind our happy calm brain. And when our hand looks like this is us in safe and social. This is a happy calm brain. That's what it looks like, okay? But even though right now we're feeling happy and we're feeling calm, our amygdala, even though it's tucked away, our alarm system, should I say, is still constantly scanning for danger. And this is what keeps us safe, essentially, okay? But what happens then whenever our brains do detect a danger, a stressor? What happens is we flip our lid, okay? So our happy calm brain has been deactivated. It's no longer in use. We're no longer able to self-regulate, okay? Our alarm system is now activated and we're operating from fight or flight mode, okay? Now, obviously, our alarm system could be triggered for a number of reasons. if we think way back into times of cavemen, that was what kept us alive, okay? And it does be triggered for real dangers, maybe like a house fire, where we do have to act very quickly to get out and to save our own lives. But it also can be activated for a lot more trivial things as well. So obviously we do have the severe, the very sad issue of ongoing trauma, or ACEs. So a child that maybe has suffered from ongoing trauma or ACEs will most likely be operating from their amygdala, using their alarm system more often. But it also can be activated for things like coming off gadgets, losing a game, being disciplined. Or for younger children, it might be because they've been told they have to share and they don't have that ability yet. They don't have the ability to share, or they just don't want to. Or for things like transitions, maybe a recent new sibling in the family, or maybe they're new to like the first day at nursery, the first day in primary one, things like that, okay? So that's just some examples of what can trigger the alarm system. So what we tend to do then when we're working with children is we teach them on all the terminology, their alarm system, their happy Cambrian, but most importantly, we teach them how they can deactivate their alarm system and put their happy Cambrian back in place, so they're back and safe and social and able to operate to the best of their ability. Okay, so by doing that, we teach them a range of healthy coping skills. And of course, being from PlayBoard, we're massive advocates for play. So that is something that we obviously do try to encourage the children to do. But I'm just going to talk you through the examples that I have here. So first up, we have the name it to tame it method. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. The child comes to a trusted adult and they name their emotion, and then that helps tame that emotion. So for example, a child comes up to you and says, I'm feeling really angry. So then that's your opportunity to kind of say, oh, okay, well, let's do some mindful breathing together, or let's take a walk outside, or let's play with Play-Doh and things like that. But obviously for younger children who maybe don't have the language or communication skills there yet, they maybe don't really understand what emotion they're feeling. So again, that's your job as the adult to name their emotion for them. Okay, I can see you're looking really angry right now. I can see you're looking very sad. What can we do to help you? Okay, so why don't we go outside and have a walk? We could watch the clouds go by. Why don't we play with the Play-Doh and things like that? And then that's obviously just introducing the child to emotions and the healthy coping skills as well. We then obviously have things like blowing bubbles, because that relates to mindful breathing. We have time in nature. The outdoor speaks for itself. We're all aware of the many benefits that it brings to us. And then we have things like sensory play as well, just adding in that lovely therapeutic factor of running your hands through rice, Play-Doh, foam, anything like that. Even just taking your shoes off and walking through the grass. That's all sensory play. Now, we actually do, we actually use the hand model with children as young as 4 or 5, so like so P1. But when we're working with older children, so maybe in the top end of school, 9, 10, 11, we actually introduce the topic of warning signs as well. Okay, so this is helping the child to identify or predetermine that they might actually flip their lid. This is all early intervention and prevention. Okay, so warning signs might look like this: a child feeling loads of butterflies in their stomach. Okay, all that anxiety feeling. Maybe they feel like their face or their whole body is extremely hot. Maybe their face is turning red, or maybe, and mostly you would link this to anger, but maybe you feel like there's a volcano inside your body or inside your head, and you can feel literally the lava rising, and all of a sudden there's an explosion of anger or unwanted behaviors. Okay, so this is all about early intervention in trying to get children to identify what's going on in their body so they can prevent their lid from flipping, basically. Okay, so I'm hoping you're all with me. This it sounds complicated, but trust me, this does work. Again, when you're working with very young children, we do recommend using visuals. Okay, so I have a pre-cut hand here, and then maybe you'll have like the smiley face to represent your happy Cambrian. You'll have your alarm system. Okay, and then you might want to keep like, oh, stopping away. You might want to keep like a wee basket handy filled with lots of lovely health and coping skills. So that's outdoor play. We have Play-Doh. or things like even hugging a teddy bear. Things like that, okay? So again, for very younger children, it does need to be visual, and that will also promote all that language and understanding, okay? For older children, cut out your hand and have them label it independently. This child has wrote alarm system in there, and then their healthy coping skills are things like colouring in, having a bath, singing, or going outside, okay? And you can see there they've drawn a volcano for their pre-warning signs. Okay, so that's just some lovely examples for you. And I'm actually going to hand over to Bernadette as she takes you through the next half of the presentation, which is all about play and why play is the best medicine for children. Okay, thank you.
So much, Laura. Just as we're transitioning across and getting the PowerPoint, it'll take us a few seconds. If you didn't get a chance before the webinar to grab an instrument, please do so now. If you don't have an instrument, I'm ruining my surprise. I've got a saucepan and spoons. So grab whatever you can that can make noise, really, and we'll get started in a wee minute now, whenever I get this correct. If you have any questions at all, please pop them into the chat and we'll get back to you either throughout or at the end, as Catherine said. Hopefully everybody has something. I think you're very organized, a lot of you. That's good. All right, I'm going to keep going, guys, because we do have a wee bit to cover, but please feel free to jump in at any point. At the minute, I'm feeling a little bit stressed because my Zoom has not been playing ball this past 24 hours. So I'm hoping it'll work, fingers crossed, for us for the next couple of hours anyway, and it can do whatever it wants this afternoon because I'm not on it. So thank you again, Laura. That was really, really helpful. And as Laura has said, the HAM model is a fantastic way to teach children about their emotional intelligence, and I have done it and Laura has done it with children as young as 4, and sometimes I would have went in with the assumption of this is a bit too complicated, but really if it's explained and sort of scaffolded in a way to support your children's needs, they really, really do grasp it. So I would encourage you all to give it a go if you can. It's really, really helpful. So yes, as Laura said, my name is Bernadette McCann. My background would be in teaching, and I'm a play worker now with PlayBoard, which is fantastic, and it is so good to see a wide range of my colleagues here from far and wide, and everybody from different settings and different backgrounds, which is really good, and some parents in there too. So very welcome, everybody. As Catherine said, it is a pleasure to speak to you all today, especially because you're really important in these children's lives and you can play a significant role in supporting their mental health, which is what we're all about today and this week for Children's Mental Health Week. So the remainder of the presentation will be about play, which is great. Unfortunately, Laura got the short straw and she got the heavier section. So the remainder of the presentation will be a wee bit lighter for you all, and we will get to play a little bit more as well. And hopefully you'll come away with some practical ideas that you can take with you to try with the children in your setting or at home as well, because play really is the best medicine. And my arrows aren't working. No. Oh, here we go. You know, I have never met a child who doesn't love to play, even in their own way. Play is one of the most important things in our children's lives. Children have this innate desire within them to play, and it's absolutely great. But sometimes it means they'll play even whenever they're not supposed to, you know, and I very often think of children playing in shops, and I'm brought back to my brother playing in a shop. It's called Cuddy's. Some of you are from Moneymore, so you should be familiar with it. It was like the crockery section anyway of Cuddy's, and he had been well warned by mother not to touch anything before he went in. And within 2 minutes we heard the smash, and whenever we investigated what happened, he said he was playing. So, you know, they really do play with anything and anywhere. So apart from being great fun, play is central to children's mental, social and emotional health and well-being. And through play, children do build and develop resilience and flexibility, which contributes to their physical, emotional well-being. But not only does it benefit the children's physical, social, and emotional well-being, it also benefits their families and their community in which they live. And in 2011, there was a study actually conducted into children's play and how it was linked to mental health. So there was a decline in children's play, and then they seen a decline actually in mental health at that time as well. And I wonder at the minute, given we have had 2 years of a pandemic and the initial statistics that are coming out, what an impact COVID has in our children's mental health as well. So it's something to bear in mind, and something I think will be published shortly, hopefully, on children's mental health in the pandemic. So, as we said earlier, a bit of an unusual title, the teaspoon of play, but basically whenever I started PlayBoard, everybody talked about the time, space and permission to play, and I could never remember it. So I always said to myself, I built it up as an acronym, the teaspoon of play, the TSP of play. And what we really mean by that, the teaspoon of play, is giving children the time, space and permission, the time which is unstructured and free, where children get to do whatever they like, really, with limited adult input. So you're not hovering over them all the time. Children, you're only intervening whenever it's necessary. So if you see that a child clearly isn't enjoying whatever they are doing, or they're at risk of harm, that's whenever you jump in. You have to try and be like a lifeguard sometimes, lifeguard on a beach. Children are given the time to be bored. This is something that none of us really get the opportunity to be anymore, because our lives are so structured, and especially for our children, their lives are so timetabled inside and outside of school settings. But being bored is not necessarily a bad thing. In being bored, children have to problem solve. They have to think for themselves as to what they like, what really makes them tick. And that's very often whenever they'll find these things out, is what they actually enjoy doing, finding things out. And also friendships, giving children the opportunity to fall in and out of friendships with each other, develop those conflict resolution skills as well. So we're giving children the time to do all of those and more. The space then that we refer to can be indoor and outdoors, the space to play, using a diverse range of play environments and resources. So populating the play space with different resources that are rotated and recirculated. So it's not the same things again and again. You're reusing things, but then you're also putting stuff away and bringing new stuff out. So it's not the same and repetitive for them. And flexibility, this is something I've really had to work on. So my play space used to be like sitting like an Instagrammable picture whenever you look up the perfect play space, where everything has its own space and everything's labeled and it sits in its own corner, when realistically what we want you to do is to give them the flexibility within that space to move everything or anything wherever they like, so that they can enhance and enrich their own play experiences. So I know some of you will be guilty of that, but just remember, even though it may look like chaos, it will bring so many benefits to your children. With permission, so our teaspoon, our P for permission, we're giving them permission to take risks. Again, risks are subjective. For one child, it could be climbing a tree. For the next child, it could be hopping on one leg. Giving them the permission to take risks, test their own boundaries, see what they can do, see what people around them can do, make mess, make noise. Again, something I've had to shift my attitude towards is the whole noise and mess thing, because I used to use indoor and outdoor voices, but why? I'm really starting to challenge my thinking on that. If children are excited as to what they're playing with or who they're playing with or their play experience, and they're making noise, surely that's a good thing. Surely that means that we are doing something right. So long as you can stop and grasp their attention whenever you need to, I do not see there being a problem with noise. Definitely not. We're giving them the chance to experience failure. Now that's a bit odd, because nobody really wants children to experience failure, but actually it's an integral part of growing up, because as we know as adults, you have to experience failure growing, and you have to learn how to overcome failures. And lastly, we're giving children the permission to take control over what they're doing, because at the minute, Children don't have much control over any aspect of their lives. So if we can give them a little snippet of control in their play, that is really, really helpful for them. So that's our TSP, and we are going to go back to that. So our T spin of play. If you're all wondering what I meant by it, that's what I meant. And play brings so many benefits to our children. You know, there are lots and lots and lots of benefits to play. And I'll give you a chance just to read some of these, although it's not an exclusive list, there are lots out there. Perfect. I hope you got a chance to read some of those. But let's look more specifically at how play can support children's resilience and emotional well-being, and ultimately their mental health. So play builds children's confidence and self-esteem. And this is absolutely fantastic. When a child takes something or nothing, like loose parts, and makes it into something, it is a wow feeling for them. Or if they're able to conquer something they've been trying for a long time. I often think of whenever I was able to ride a bike without stabilizers. I was quite old at that time, but it was such a boost to my confidence. I rang all of my family members to tell them I was able to do it, and I still remember it to this day. That's the impact it's had on me. We're also giving them the chance, as we said, to take risks, because we need children to feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm sure all of us can agree whenever we say if we didn't do it anyway, none of us would be sitting here today. And very often, if we don't let children experience risks whenever they're young, they won't take risks when they're older. And unfortunately, you can't live life risk-free these days. To build relationships with others, not only with their peers and other children, but also with you, because we know having that attachment with one secure adult is really, really important for children. Play is really unique in that it allows children to experience a wide range of emotions in a very, very short snippet of time. You know, you can go from the euphoria, the excitement, the thrill, to frustration, jealousy, anger in a very, very quick succession. And in turn, then children have to learn how to self-regulate or co-regulate and deal with those emotions. They have to be able to adapt as well, because in play, play changes all the time. Children come in with new ideas, things change, so children have to be able to adapt in order to keep that play going, otherwise it'll stop. Play also gives children the opportunity to work through difficulties. We're seeing this increasingly at the moment in terms of COVID. Children really do play out their experiences and the things that are going on around them, and that helps them come to terms with what's going on. So with COVID, in a number of settings we've worked with, children have been running around giving COVID jabs with pens. They've been fighting COVID monsters. We've had COVID hospitals as well. And I've seen it with other experiences as well, where children have played funerals. If they've had a bereavement, children were pretend to carry a coffin around the playground. There was a little girl had a doll up her jumper one day, and I said, "Oh, what are you doing there?" And she said, "Oh, I'm feeding the baby." And it turned out she had just had a new sibling at home, so she was copying very much what experiences she was going through at home. Have any of you seen any children play out their experiences? I'd love to know more, particularly now with COVID. Has anyone witnessed a change or anything in their children's play? Share it onto the chat if you get a wee chance to do so. COVID shop with masks, yep. Definitely. I wonder, were they selling masks or were they just purchasing items with masks on? No one else.
I'm wondering, Bernadette, is it this an opportunity to share for our guests from over the water about the little boy playing with the shield? So basically we would go out and do like sessions with cross community settings, and we would take large containers that obviously like filled with toys and stuff like that, and they have lids as well. So this particular lid was completely black, and it would have been about the length of a young child. And we let the children play with anything so long as they're not going to damage it. So this wee boy was playing with this large lid, and all of a sudden he started shouting, quick, quick, it's a rat, it's the police, run, and was holding up this the lid as a shield and hiding behind it. And that to me was just a really lovely example of how like what the child sees in their community, what the child sees at home, what the child sees on the news, on TV, really influences their play. And that was just that wee boy kind of acting that out and trying to understand it, I guess. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting one to share.
Yeah, there's quite a few coming into the chat there as well. Someone saying, I forgot my mask when playing the shops. It's almost as bad as forgetting your purse these days, forgetting your mask. You have to go back. Someone else has said that their child has had, where did it go? Is currently, has a phobia of anything medical as a result of COVID. And you know, it's interesting whenever you look at studies as to why play is used so much in hospitals for children who are in hospital, is to help them sort of normalize it and understand what's going on around them. And that's interesting if you're interested, if like it may so help you with your daughter. You know, I had seen one where there was children who were extremely fearful of needles, so they brought like the big noodles, you know, the water noodles, and they had like a water fight with them in hospital to help demonstrate, well, this is a needle, it has got special stuff inside it, it's going to make you feel better. And they played with the noodles, and that really supported them in that way. But there's lots of research out there to do with that if you're interested in it. Yeah. Breastfeeding the dolls, I had to laugh at that one. Yeah, it's great, really, really good. Self-isolation pods, yeah, we're definitely seeing it at the minute with COVID. Thank you everybody for sharing. So I'll just move on. So sometimes as a practitioner, I get really caught up on all of the benefits that play brings, but ultimately the best one is that it makes our children happy. You know, and that is what we all want, really happy children who are not stress-free but less stressed is what we all want, because that's really music to my ears. And speaking of music, now that you've all got a chance to grab your instruments, we're going to join in a little musical, I don't even know what do we call this, we're going to make some music. So we, as we say, the TSP of play, our time, space and permission to play. I've changed the words to this fantastic song. So it is from Mary Poppins. It's a spoonful of sugar, and it's now just a teaspoon of play helps the stress levels go down. Okay. I will play the music with it. Please feel free to unmute yourselves. Yeah, so you can make music with us. That would be great, because Laura and I have done this before with blank screens, and it's not good. So yes,
recently, and they sang with us, and it was fantastic. So no pressure, but we want this audience to be better. Sing loud, sing proud.
Yeah. So my instrument of choice today, as I've already revealed, is spoons in a saucepan. Laura, what's yours?
I've stole my daughter's maracas.
Ooh, nice. Okay. Oh, I can see some interesting ones there. We are going to get a photograph of your instruments at the end. So we'll sing first and then we'll get a photograph. Yes. Okay, everybody. Get my voice ready.
Here we go.
Let's go. Oh, fingers crossed it works, because it didn't work yesterday. Remember, Laura?
Yeah.
Oh! Wait, here we go. No. Here we go.
Stress level down, the stress level play helps the stress level down in the stress level go down, the stress level go down. Stress level just as easy when play helps the stress level go down in the mindful way.
Well done, everybody.
Let's get a photo now. Hold on. Maria, are you happy to take the screenshot?
She'll be hiding in there somewhere.
Yes, yes.
Well, you can get into it, Maria. You know, don't be shy. Okay, hold up your instruments, everybody, and smile. Okay, I hope you got something there, Maria.
I'm speaking on as well, just in case, but I was speaking to her earlier and she said that she was going to do it. So
that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, there
Catherine.
she's written into the chat there. Yeah, she's got it.
Okay, that's
Thank
great.
you, everybody. That was good crack.
Yeah, if nothing else, guys, that was just to make you smile and give you a little brain break. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for taking part, because not everyone does sometimes. So it's really, really nice to have people join in. So we'll move on now to, oh, come on, slides. There we go. Play is for everyone. So Article 31 of the UNCRC highlights that every child has the right to play. And at PlayBoard, we believe that children with special educational needs have the same right to play as any other child and should be offered the same time, space and permission without being unduly overprotected. Unfortunately, research does suggest that children with special educational needs and/or disabilities are at higher risk of experiencing mental health difficulties than those without. Unfortunately, that statistic is quite high. They are actually 4.5 times more likely to experience mental health difficulties. So really, if we can get these children playing and get them building their mental health and social and emotional well-being, that's what we should be doing. It's crucial for all children, but especially crucial for these children with special educational needs. So within our role then as practitioners, as parents, we need to make those reasonable adjustments so the children can access play, but also empower the children to take the lead in their play still, and most of all, have fun. Play can actually support children with some of the difficulties that they may experience. You know, if you have children who are sensory seeking, etc., play offers amazing sensory opportunities for them. For my sister, she has a visual impairment, and I remember growing up as a young child, her and I played together all the time, and it really did help her develop her spatial awareness and strengthen her other senses so she could navigate the world around her a lot better as well. But it's important that inclusion is sort of at the forefront of what we do. It needs to be considered at every stage of the play. So the plan, do, and review. If you're in a setting and you follow that, please do consider it at every stage. And involve the children as much as you can, because the children know what will work best for them, but also they might come up with more creative play solutions than you could ever think of. So it's really important to include children where possible in the plan, do, review stages. I know this won't apply to everybody here, but it may apply to some of you. That play, you know, I've used play throughout my whole teaching career as an exciting vehicle, excuse me, to really ignite learning, to bring learning to life. And it's something that I think should be utilized across all age groups, not just for the foundation stage, which sometimes, unfortunately, it is. It is through play that children learn the things that cannot be taught, those skills that they need for adulthood as they progress through life, such as thinking skills and personal capabilities, working together, self-management, problem solving, being creative. They really, really do come to the forefront through play. So I could talk about this absolutely all day, but unfortunately this would be another webinar in itself. Shanine McCusker and I, who has also joined us today, did deliver a webinar previously based on outdoor play and the curriculum. So I would advise, if anyone does have an interest in this, Catherine will share the link with you guys. You can go back and re-watch that webinar if you want to know anything further about play and the curriculum. So, facilitating free play. At PlayBoard, where possible, we really do advocate for free play, and this is really when we allow the children to decide when to play, what to play, how to play, and when to stop playing. And if you aren't already, something that we really, really do use is loose parts. I'm not sure, you can pop in the chat if you already are using them, but we love using loose parts. They're so good for children, and particularly the reason why they are so good is because they don't come with a set of rules or instructions. Children can very much have creative control and creative license over what they do, and there's no right or wrong way to use them. Using loose parts really does stimulate creativity and curiosity, not only for children, but also for us adults as well. I love using loose parts in delivery training whenever we are delivering training with adults. I love creating things as much as the children do, but it also builds children's resilience, because with loose parts also comes frustration and a great deal of problem solving, because as we said, there's no instructions. Things aren't made to fit inside of each other. Children have to do that themselves. And you can see in the wee photo there, the wee girl's trying to balance and stick something on, and the wee boy has made himself an outfit. So yeah, we would really advocate for promoting free play as much as you can. Structured play is fantastic as well, but free play is where you'll see a lot of these benefits come to the forefront. And loose parts. And if you want to know anything else about loose parts, again, you'll find a multitude of stuff online. And again, the best thing about them is they're free, mostly free, free and found resources, which is fantastic for everybody. So in Playwork, we use the 16 play types to help us be more specific whenever we talk about children's play, and to ensure that we offer a wide and rich play diet for all children. Sutton Smith argues that if children are exposed to a wide range of all of these play types, then their brains actually grow larger than they normally would, dramatically increasing their ability to store and process information. So we recommend using this, again, during that plan, do and review process, to review your play offer, make sure that you are giving children a wide, varied diet, and really seeing what's missing, identifying what's missing in your setting as well, and how you can improve on that. It's really useful. But as I say, more information can be found on these online, and a lot of them overlap as well, which is great. So we're moving on to the mindfulness section of this presentation, because mindfulness is so important. It really is paying full attention to something. It means slowing down, really noticing what you're doing. Being mindful is the opposite of rushing or multitasking. If you're mindful, you're taking your time, you're focusing in a relaxed and easy way. And someone once said to me, mindfulness really is ensuring that your head is where your feet are. And that's really stuck with me, because very often as adults, I think our lives are quite chaotic sometimes. And even though we might be doing something, our heads could be, what am I making for dinner? Who's going to look after such and such? What do I have to do next week? Oh, I need to schedule that appointment. So again, mindfulness is the complete opposite of that. It's bringing ourselves back down and into the present moment. And when children play, we really do believe that they are mindful, because they are truly living in the moment. All they're focusing on is that play. And mindfulness is becoming increasingly popular, and that's because of its many benefits that it can bring children and the adults within settings and homes as well. And it has especially got a positive impact on building children's mental health and adults' mental health, as I say, because it helps reduce stress levels and anxiety levels. And you guys can introduce mindfulness in several ways into your setting or your home, through play, as we've talked about, be it structured or free play, carpet time if you do such a thing, if you're checking in and out with the children as they come in and out of your setting, small groups, or as a whole family doing some mindfulness together, or you might want to do it on an individual basis with a child, to help them co-regulate and identify ways that can help their brain go back to this, stay happy. So let's have a look at some, because at the end of the day, there's no one shoe fits all for mindfulness. It's trial and error and seeing what works for you and your family or the children in your setting. And there are many different forms of mindfulness. So let's look at mindful breathing. So breathing is something that our body does automatically, yet we never actually stop to think about it, but we really should, because breathing is one of the most sensitive warning signs we have about stress. Deep belly breathing especially signals the nervous system to relax, which lowers our heart rate, our stress, and our blood pressure. It is really our built-in, all natural regulator within us, which is great. And there's different ways you can achieve belly breathing or mindful breathing in your setting or in your home. First up, I'm going to show you this little rainbow breathing. So it's really, really simple. You can get templates. There's loads of templates online. And this here, the clouds say different, I don't know if you can say that, the clouds say words, so they say hold and hold, and then there's little arrows taking you up and down each of the colors, and you can make them much bigger, smaller, it's up to you. You can have ones with like loads of colors, it just depends on your age group. So I'll just demonstrate now how it would work. So I'm going to go up. Whenever I go up, I'm going to breathe in, and whenever I go to orange, I'm going to breathe out. So everybody breathing in. Hold and breathe out and hold. And in the green, we're going to breathe in and hold and breathing out on the blue. And that's that. So as I say, you can make them longer or shorter depending on the age group that you're working with. Really, really short and easy activity you could do at any time. The key with activities for children is to keep them as visual as you can. So you'll see a lot of visuals here today. Belly breathing as well is that you can use a little teddy or a pebble or anything to set on a child's belly, and they can watch it moving up and down as they do their deep belly breathing. Candle breathing or birthday breathing, where the children have to, they could sing happy birthday, and then we can say, how old are you today? I'm 10, and then we have to blow out our 10 candles, breathing in and out 1. Okay, things like that. Or bubbles are really helpful as well. Hand breathing, where you're breathing in until you get to the top and out. So in and out. That's a really handy one as well. One very simple resources or no resources needed for a lot of these. Blowing on a pinwheel as well. You could also do some arts and crafts where you're making, I've got a one-eyed dragon, unfortunately, he lost an eye in the box. You can make some crafts and children have to then do some breathe. You could use these for deep breathing, so breathing where children can actually see the fire and your little dragon moving up and down. They really, really like that too, because that's like a two-parter. It's arts and crafts as well. And we also use a singing bowl. These are available on Amazon, but also other retailers, where you can hit, I don't think it comes up very well on Zoom, but I'll give it a go. Can you hear that at all, Laura?
We hear the first hit, but the noise doesn't carry, the sound doesn't carry.
Okay, so if you were doing this in a room and not over Zoom, the noise carries for quite a long time. So you can use these to help children meditate. They can count the number of times you've hit it, or you can do an activity where they actually have to raise a limb whenever they hear the ring and stop. And they really, really, really do take to this quite well. I have to say, we've worked with some groups where there's a lot of energy, and I thought, oh my goodness, how are we going to do some mindful breathing with you guys today? When really, whenever you bring these out, it works so well. It just brings them into this state of calm. So even if your group does have a lot of energy, again, I would encourage you to give mindful breathing a go. Okay, then we'll move on to active mindfulness. So mindfulness doesn't always have to be meditative, although we've given you some examples of meditative mindfulness before. It's about finding out what works for you, your group, and your children. It can be active too. So long as children are focusing on one thing for an extended period of time, it is mindfulness. So for me personally, I love going for long walks with no distractions, no earphones, just listening and noticing everything that's going on around me. For your children then, some examples you might want to try with them are like a mindful relay. For the example on the screen here, there's an egg and spoon. Balancing relays are particularly good because the children really have to concentrate to get things to balance. We've done it where they've had to balance like a ball on this side of their hand or on any limb. That's quite tricky as well, and they have to go through a number of obstacles. That's really, they loved it, so they did, because it was an element of competition with it as well. Going on mindful walks or journeys, relating this back to, say, a book you're reading can also be really helpful, like we're going on a bear hunt, playing circle games. one of our favorite circle games is the fox and the hen. So you would have a blindfold with a child in the middle who's got a spray bottle of water. They're blindfolded and they have eggs, and someone has to sneak up on them and try and steal the eggs at their feet before they get sprayed. That is such a great game. I can't tell you how much they love it. It is the simplest thing ever, and it could go on and on and on for ages. But yeah, it's really good because the children have to really, really be quiet and focus and try and listen to someone sneaking up on them. It's a really good one. But there's also other variations of that game, like there's a keys one and there's a dragon one as well. Dragon circle games and key circle games, which you can find online as well, just slightly different, but children really, really enjoy them. Mindful movements, so any PE or physical exercise you can get in there at all is mindful as well, because it helps children vent and release their emotions, you know, and you can do things like roar like a lion, stomp like a dinosaur, give yourself a big hug, things like that there, just as an outlet for children's emotions sometimes as well. Yoga, very popular as well. You can get animal yoga cards online, which children really like doing as well, making different animal shapes, which is particularly good with the younger children. The older ones just prefer to do normal yoga from my experience. But this type of active mindfulness is really, really good for supporting children's understanding of movement and breathing, and it's generally quite exciting, so it's something they want to do again and again and again. We also have creative mindfulness, where children can make things such as glitter jars, sensory bags, sensory dough, where they can add different things, textures and scents to it. And they can do different mark making activities as well. This is something I really like doing because I always lose track of time whenever I'm making things. The glitter jars are very good for, you could do it in an individual basis, small group or whole group, where everybody has to put a little bit of glitter in to represent how they're feeling that day. And then you can actually use the glitter jar as like a mindful breathing. Let's all watch the glitter going up and down, and relate that to their deep belly breathing. Outdoor play, then again, being outdoors is fantastic, because when you're outdoors, your body releases happy hormones such as serotonin and dopamine, which makes you feel good. It gives you the feel good factor. And also you produce vitamin D, which helps reduce that cortisol, that stress hormone in the brain, making us feel better as well. And being outdoors offers children unique sensory experiences which cannot be recreated indoors. And is really, really fantastic for their health and well-being. So there's some examples there of things that we like to do outdoors with children that can be quite mindful, such as scavenger hunts, bug hunts, gardening, mud kitchens, nature pictures, leaf rubbings, walking barefoot, chalk pictures, cloud watching. A colleague of ours actually went to Victoria Park and did some airplane watching with the children one day. He said he'd highly recommend that. And you might think, why has she put risky play in there? Well, risky play is an interesting one because I personally wouldn't perceive risky play as being mindful, but whenever I stood back and observed children engaging in risky play, I could see that they were really engaged in mindfulness, because it was almost as if the world was in slow motion. They were like putting one foot in front of the other whenever they were like on a balancing beam. And they were really aware of what was going on around them. So it is, in a way, mindfulness as well. Stories. So you can also, reading in itself can be really mindful, a form of mindfulness for children and adults. And when reading together, you know, there are lots of books out there that you can relate back to children's emotional intelligence. Any book really, like if you think of The Little Red Hen, you could say, and why is the little red hen feeling this way? And is there anything we could do to help her? But there are also books which are specific to supporting children's emotional well-being. And here's just a few examples. Personally, I love the Fill a Bucket one because there's so many follow-on activities you can do from it, and children love the visual and they can have their own wee bucket to fill, which is really nice. But I'm sure you guys have used loads of them. If you want to put any into the chat that you find particularly good, please feel free to do so. You might also notice that we've included a social story there in the bottom right hand side, because sometimes if you have children specifically with special needs or autism, very often social stories are really helpful in supporting them learn about their emotions as well. And I'm very nearly finished, sorry. We're going tight for time, tight to the wire. So very often when we work with people who aren't play work trained and ask them what do they see whenever they look at this photograph, they'll very often come up with something like this. Play, fun and happiness are the three things that generally come up. But hopefully now we are approaching the end of this session, you are now beginning to see that play is so much more. You know, it really does have so many benefits for our children, especially for their mental health. I'm gonna give you a wee second just to look at those. And now I'm moving on. This is my last slide, everybody. So working with children, having children at home, being a parent is not easy. You have to wear so many different hats. One day you could be a friend, parent, co-worker, doctor, nurse. You could be absolutely anything all in one day for these children. So it's really important that you look after yourself. Spot the signs of stress and do something about it. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You know, we need to be at our best so that we can give our children the best that they deserve as well. Because at the end of the day, emotions really are contagious. When we're in bad form, it does impact them as well. Be play advocates. Make the time, space and permission or teaspoon to play. I was going to say shout it from the rooftops, but I'll say sing it from the rooftops, everybody. The time, space and permission to play, our teaspoon of play, and help others understand and see the value that play brings. Be patient and non-judgmental when you're working with children. It's not always easy. Sometimes children's emotions come out in various ways and behaviors which are difficult to manage. But just be kind to yourselves and kind to the children, because children don't like outbursts either. That's what I've learned to realize. Use I language, like I wonder if you're feeling a little bit stressed right now. I wonder if going for a walk would help you. Role model and co-regulate. It is important that you show children that you have emotions too. As we say, it's not easy. I'm feeling a little stressed right now. I'm going to take 5 deep breaths. And sometimes I had to do that several times a day. And lastly, remember that play isn't just good for our children, it's good for us too. So remember to play. And that's just a wee reminder of our services. And TFL put up a lovely thing today that says, for Mental Health Week, children get sad, children feel bad, children sometimes think they're going mad. Children get stressed, children get depressed, children sometimes think their lives are a mess. A child's mental health is more important than any school grade. It's up to us to give them the courage to speak up and not be afraid. And that's what I wanted to leave you with today. So thank you. I'm sorry I'm a wee bit over, I think, and I'll pass you back to Catherine.
Well done. Thank you very much, Bernadette and Laura. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm sure everyone's taken a lot away from that. So thank you. I know we're a wee bit over, but we haven't actually had many questions throughout the session, so you must have explained everything brilliantly. There was just one about a 2011 report, Bernadette, that you had mentioned.
Yeah, I have that in my notes, Catherine, so I'll share it with you.
Okay, I'll send that out then whenever I'm sending the link to the webinar recording. Is there any other questions or queries that anybody might have before we sign off? Yep.
Follow us, guys. We're all on social media. We have free membership as well if anyone's interested, where you'll get a whole host of ideas and knowledge, hopefully.
Yes, as Bernadette says, if you go onto our website, PlayBoard NI, up the top on the bar, you can see a membership section that you can join in, and you can find a whole host of resources. So we'd invite you to do that if you would like. I think that's everything, everybody. People are just saying thank you. So it sounds like they had a good session. So yeah, we'll leave it there then. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And hopefully you can take something away from that. So we'll
Thank
see
you,
all soon.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you. Have a nice day.